In a double-blind crossover study, we took a look at animal models, and we were trying to ascertain what caused facial bloat and what caused abdominal bloat. And our results were pretty astonishing. All right, that's just me being a total smart aleck. What I really want to talk about today is the actual keen difference between facial bloat and stomach bloat. Okay, you have two completely different things that are causing these things in your body. I have so many people that hit me with comments that say, hey, my stomach's bloated and my face is bloated. Or how do I get rid of body bloat and facial bloat? Well, quite honestly, we have to address that there's two different things that are causing those. And what usually causes facial bloat has to do more so with dehydration and minerals. So I'm going to get into the science of what's going to cause your facial bloat and what's going to cause abdominal bloat. All right, so first off, let's talk about facial bloat. How many times have you woke up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you say, what the heck, I feel totally moon-faced, like you just don't even look the same that you normally do. And I'm not being totally self-absorbed when I say this, but I'm on camera a lot. And if I look in the mirror and I see facial bloat, it kind of throws off my day. I don't exactly like the way that I look. And I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that you probably feel the same way. Well, it has to do more so than anything with dehydration, and it affects your face simply because we generally tend to retain water in our face first before anywhere else. And more than anything, it has to do with the fact that we're dehydrated in the morning, okay? So when we get up, we've been laying down, and gravity, of course, is pooling water and pooling blood into our face. It's also known as edema. It's pretty simple, right? But it goes a little bit deeper than that. You see, when you start to get dehydrated, at the very beginning of dehydration is when you are gonna see the most facial bloat. As you get more and more dehydrated, the facial bloat actually goes away. You see, the facial bloat is sort of a last resort for your body to try to hold on to water. A lot of people don't realize that when you get dehydrated, your body holds on to water. That's the whole idea. Normally, your kidneys are excreting all of your minerals and excreting all of the water that you're consuming, or not all of it, but most of it, as you're bringing more in. But if you're not bringing enough water in and you're not excreting it, your kidneys aren't working, they communicate with your brain to try to hold on to water in order to preserve it. It just so happens that the face is the first place that we see that. So what I'm trying to say here is that let your face be sort of the litmus test for the fact that you're on your way to getting more dehydrated. Some people just let it go so much further past that, that eventually the facial bloat goes away, but they're actually even more dehydrated. So all that it really means when your face is super bloated is that you're in the early stages of dehydration. But there's another reason that this can happen as well. And it has to do with way too much what I call unopposed sodium. Unopposed sodium is not just having high amounts of salt. I made it pretty clear in a lot of my videos that salt is not the enemy, okay? What is the enemy is pure, absolute, unopposed sodium, which means things like iodized salt that don't have other minerals to balance it out. You see, sodium needs potassium, sodium needs magnesium to balance it out, because sodium is what is known as something that is osmotic, okay? Now this osmotic substance means that it's gonna draw water in. So if you have high amounts of sodium and low amounts of water, like you're already starting to be dehydrated, what little water is left is gonna get drawn into the bloodstream and drawn into your capillaries and a lot of times make you puffy. So how do you counteract this? Well, step one is using a balanced salt, okay? Using something like truffle salt, using something like pink Himalayan salt, or using something like Brazilian sea salt. Although, if you saw the recent article, you're probably finding now that even sea salt is contaminated with a lot of plastics. So truffle salt or Himalayan salt is gonna be the way to go. The other thing that you're gonna wanna do first thing when you start to see a little bit of facial bloat coming on is consume some cream of tartar. Just because it contains a high amount of potassium, super high amount of potassium. It's a byproduct of winemaking, and it's very, very easy to add just to a little bit of water and you barely taste it. You're gonna get about 475 milligrams of potassium in just a teaspoon of that, and that's gonna help balance out that unopposed sodium. But again, once you start consuming the right kind of sodium, you're gonna be just fine. And here's a general rule of thumb that I want you to follow for how much sodium you should have per how much water you should have. I generally recommend consuming about a teaspoon of quality salt for every 3/4 of a gallon to 1 gallon of water that you consume, depending on how active you are. Your body is first going to excrete a lot of the other minerals before it excretes sodium. Your body's gonna hold on to sodium pretty darn rampantly. Okay, so now we've addressed facial bloat. Now don't get me wrong, there's a lot of other things that can attribute to facial bloat, but this is the most common. Now let's talk about stomach bloat, because it's two completely different things. Stomach bloat is usually caused from something digestive or something gastrointestinal related. And most of the time it has to do with the poor breakdown of certain foods, particularly what are known as FODMAP food. And it stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. Basically what that means is different kinds of sugars that don't break down well, and of course sugar alcohols like polyols that don't break down well. What happens is they don't digest in your system, they basically go into your colon and they ferment and they create a bunch of gas like hydrogen and methane that's going to make you feel bloated and make you distended. It may not make you puffy, but it's going to make you feel totally like you're not fitting in your pants and like you're super bloated. Alright, so what causes this specifically and what should you do and what should you avoid? Well, first things first, even though I am a huge proponent of cruciferous veggies, you should not be consuming these raw. Raw broccoli and raw cabbage can be an absolute nightmare when it comes to stomach bloat and distension. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we're avoiding those when they're raw and steaming them, even if it's just for a little bit of time. You see, cruciferous veggies, to begin with, are extremely fibrous, but in addition to that, they contain a sugar known as raffinose. Now this raffinose, we actually lack the enzyme to break down. We don't have the ability to break down raffinose. So what it does is it ends up transferring through our small intestine into our colon, and then from there, the bacteria that's in our colon tries to break it down, and it produces a ton of hydrogen. A little bit of methane, but mostly hydrogen. That's why you get super gassy whenever you have a lot of broccoli or cabbage. Cabbage is even higher in raffinose. If you ever notice, cabbage is a little bit sweeter than broccoli, and that's because of the raffinose. So what do you do besides steaming it? Because steaming it, you're still going to have the raffinose, and you might find you still get bloated. Well, I've got a quick solution for you, and even sort of a recipe that you can use to start fermenting your cruciferous veggies, fermenting your broccoli. Like maybe you've seen kimchi out there before, maybe you've seen sauerkraut. Well, what if I told you you could actually ferment your broccoli in the same way and get a lot more of the phytonutrients from the broccoli than you may not be getting from the cabbage? All you're gonna do is make a brine solution at first, okay? You're just gonna take like a half a gallon of water, maybe even a little bit less, and you're gonna put about 3 to 6 tablespoons of good quality sodium in there. I'm talking about pink Himalayan salt or truffle salt. Then you're additionally gonna add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. It's gonna enhance the mineral uptake of the broccoli when you do consume it. Then all you wanna do is you wanna weight the broccoli down so it's totally submerged, and you're gonna let it sit for about 24 to 48 hours. And that's really all you need to start the fermentation process. That fermentation process breaks down the raffinose that our body normally can't break down. So then you're still getting all the minerals, all the benefits of the broccoli, of the cruciferous veggies, but without the raffinose and without the fibers that are so hard to break down. So by doing this, you have the perfect combination that's gonna help your facial bloat, and it's gonna help your digestive bloat simply because you're getting the right mineral balance, the right mineral uptake, and you're pre-digesting your veggies. So I hope that this clears some things up, and just so that you guys know, no animals were harmed in this study whatsoever. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel and make sure that you comment and let me know what other videos you want to see in the future so that we can make sure we're bringing them to you. I'll see you soon.